This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Garrity and Jill Tirone.
Welcome to this episode of the Dance Studio 411 podcast. I'm Jill Tirone, and today we're diving into an important conversation about ensuring your teachers are stakeholders in your dance studio business, why they matter, how they shape your studio's success, and what you can do to better support and empower them. My special guest today is Amelia Fazio, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her in just a moment, but I wanted to share how this podcast episode came to be. Amelia and I work together, and what's really wonderful is we have amazing opportunities to chat about what's going on in the dance studio world. She works with so many wonderful customers, and we were talking about some of the gaps and identifying some of the things that we were hearing from our studio owner friends about their teachers and some of the issues they're having or some of the wins that they want to celebrate when it comes to their faculty and staff. But what we were really discussing is how we can empower studio owners to really invest time and energy and support into their teachers and really making them part of their business and really holding some stake and being stakeholders in the business. So that's how this came about. Let me tell you a little bit about Amelia now. So Amelia Fazio, her lifelong passion for dance started at the age of 5, leading her to train with some of the most renowned instructors in the field. After her own dance career, she earned a degree in public communications and combined her love of dance with business, working in arts nonprofits, apparel wholesale, and within the dance costume industry before joining Revolution in 2021. With her deep understanding of dance studios and what makes them thrive, Amelia truly understands the challenges and needs of studio owners, which is why we have her on today. She's here to share her insights and how dance teachers are more than just employees. They are really key stakeholders in your business. So Amelia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jill, for inviting me to be a part of this podcast. It's always such an honor to be sitting and chatting with you. You are such an expert in the field as well. So it's genuinely a pleasure to talk about these things today. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about today that we really hope is going to just help transform your day-to-day is how to engage your teachers to become a stakeholder in your business. So this is a topic that you and I, Jill, we have a unique perspective on because we are longtime teachers, but we are also two people who are deeply connected in our industry, both through networking and consulting, and then also building relationships with literally thousands of studio owners and teachers across North America. Thousands is definitely the key word. So we have heard it all, right? Even the dog ate the costume and the homework story. I've heard it. And we love hearing from our customers. We can tell you what seems to work well for studio owners and what doesn't because we hear from so many owners and we have for so long. So what that's enabled us to do is essentially pull from a bank of resources, essentially, that we use in order to help push our industry forward in a really positive, supportive, and loving way.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned, thousands of things that happen and all of the goodness that we just take on as teachers and as studio owners. We get so busy in this day-to-day world and there are so many things being thrown at us. And as a studio owner, we say this all the time, but you wear so many hats. So what we need to do is kind of just keep the wheels on the bus on a day-to-day basis. That means making sure that the classes are going on time, making sure that, families are happy, students are calling in sick, and then we have teachers calling in sick, and who's going to cover those classes? So, basically we want to make sure that everybody's happy. And as the studio owner, you're doing a lot, and that can be, a bit wearing. So when we start to create this culture of empowering our teachers and really investing in them to become stakeholders in the business, this is where the magic starts to happen. So this is where we're going to talk today, is to really feel good about empowering people and making sure that we can delegate and we can work with them and maybe give them additional training and really give our teachers, and this can even transfer over into admin staff as well, Amelia, right? Really,
Yeah.
anybody that's in your studio, really make them feel like they're very vested in this business.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that we need to do is define what we mean by the word stakeholder today. So let's be honest. As professionals in the dance industry, many of us could tell you how to spell all the different terminology, right? We could tell you how to spell Ron de Jong. I'm guilty of this. Some of us, when giving directions, may tell somebody to go upstage or downstage instead of north or south. So we are subject matter experts in the art of dance and teaching dance, but some of the words used in the business world are foreign to a lot of us, and that's totally okay. This is a safe space. So, stakeholder may be one of those words. So, what do we mean by stakeholders? That's going to be anybody internally. So, anybody who is employed or contracted by you. So, your admin staff, like you mentioned, Jill, earlier, your teachers, anybody who is within your company. Your external stakeholders would be people like your customers, vendors you work with, the community that you support. We're not really going to be talking about them today. We're going to be talking about your teachers. So, these are the people who are invested in your company, whether you realize it or not. So not only are they subject matter experts in the genres that they're teaching, but they also share your passion for dance. The income that you provide them with could also directly lead to their feelings of well-being and security. So they might feel a lot of job satisfaction watching their students perform. All those things wrapped together mean that they're invested and even vested into your vision for your studio. Again, whether you or they realize it or not.
Absolutely. And talking about these internal stakeholders, the teachers, and like you said, it really could be anybody, even down to the cleaning crew at your studio. Like they are people that you are either employing or even bartering for services, but they're part of the business that you're running. So they can really have a massive effect on the overall success and really your brand. We've heard some horror stories of how, one bad apple can really spoil the bunch because there may be a teacher that is not following your vision or the things that you may want to have in your studio, and they're doing things differently, and then they're not necessarily really taking your mission, vision, and values the to the degree and to the length that you would like them to. So, based on that, I think it's really important. We have other podcasts that we've done, so I'm going to link those in the show notes, but we have other resources too to help you along the way, besides even further what we're doing today. And of course, we always have our trainings on Dance Studio Owner that you can go through and look at as well if you're a member. So, we'll link those because we've talked about these types of ideas and these types of scenarios before. We're not really going into too much new information here, right, Amelia?
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good refresher. It's a good way of looking at it in maybe a new way. So I saw this sentence online. We love the internet, right? Who doesn't? It does provide a wealth of information. And I really felt like this was a perfect description for us. So I'm going to read it right now. Your stakeholders, in this case, your teachers. So starting over, your teachers are the ones who create, sell, and deliver your services and your vision. Let me say this again. Your teachers are the ones who create, sell, and deliver your services and vision. So if we look at everything today through the lens of those three words, it might help all of us gain a little perspective on how to handle it when those days do get so busy and so overwhelming. one of the things that I do that I find really helpful in my work life is I have an inspiration board behind my desk, and I will put Post-it notes on there of words and ideas that I really want to be evergreen about my job. So things that influence my decisions on a daily basis. I'd really encourage you to grab some Post-it notes today and write some of those words down. Write create, write deliver, write stakeholders. Just keep some of those things top of mind so that every day when you're making some of these decisions, those are things that you think about.
And I love that you're talking about decisions specifically because, like we mentioned, day to day running the business is all about decisions. But if we're very specific about the decisions that we're making when it comes to our actual stakeholders in the business, that's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than deciding, what we're going to order for lunch or what we need to do for different paper towels for the bathrooms. It's an entirely different way of thinking. So Amelia, I'm glad you mentioned your vision board and the Post-it notes. That's something that I do as well. I'm a big word person like you are. I think words have a lot of power. And when we get stuck in those day-to-day decisions that we're making and the tasks and the to-dos and the lengthy long lists, it's really good to take a look at how is this affecting my teachers? How is this affecting my stakeholders? So I think it's a great way to stop and pause. And I remember you talked to me about a little meeting that we were having, and I was like, oh, what would you do in this scenario? And she said, put it on a Post-it note. And I did, and I stuck it right in front of me. And so when I was thinking about a certain issue or a certain project that I was working on, I kept remembering when I would look at that Post-it note to take a quick breath and say, is this important to what I'm working on?
Yeah.
Or am I getting sidetracked? Because it is so easy to get sidetracked. So thank you for the Post-it note idea. I mean, we like to put everything in our planners or behind electronic calendars and things like that. But there's something about a little reminder that's right in front of you. And I've seen, you showed me your beautiful, board that you have by your desk, and it's a wonderful reminder of what's important.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps me on a daily basis. So I hope it helps y'all as well. So I'm going to be writing these 3 words down too: create, sell, and deliver, because I think they're impactful. So we've kind of segmented this into those 3 bullet points based on those 3 words of creating, selling, and delivering. So first, let's talk about creating. So teachers are your frontline brand ambassadors. They create the day-to-day experience that your customers have with your brand, right? And you as a studio owner, cloning's not a thing yet, right? So you cannot be in every single room of your studio teaching every single class, signing in every single family who walks in the door, selling dancewear. It is physically impossible for you to do that. And that's why it's so important that every person who works for the studio really embodies the values that are important to your business. So another way that they create that day-to-day experience is that the teachers are often the primary point of contact between your studio and your students. And, it's not just their energy and their teaching style and their engagement. But Jill, you brought up a good point when we were chatting before recording. You know, does the parent know if they have an issue? Do they go to the teacher? Do they go to the studio owner? That teacher could be fielding some really high level problems or questions on behalf of your business. So it's really, really essential to help those teachers feel invested in what it is that you are creating in your business.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
just
go ahead, Jill.
just to extend on what you were saying and what we were talking about is you as a studio owner, first and foremost, decide how your clients, how those families are they going to the teacher for these things, or are they coming to the studio owner? Give them a path. We always talk about a path. So is the path through the teacher? And if it is through the teacher, empower those teachers and really make sure that they are invested in delivering the correct information or the correct path to get the information back to you. Really, really important. Again, if you're clear, then they're clear on what they need to do.
I love that you use that word path, Jill. I think that's really important. One of the things we really wanted to talk about in creating a stakeholder from your frontline ambassadors is communication. And that's a path to provide them those resources, right? So in your communication, some ideas for you. Do your teachers get included on all outbound emails to your families? Are they aware of what's going on in the studio? Or do you have a separate, maybe monthly news bulletin that just goes out to your staff that's full of some positive updates? Do you offer any group training opportunities, or maybe even a day where, you gather for teacher planning, just like they do in public schools, they have teacher planning days. Do you have teacher planning days? Do you have those options available for your employees? One of the things that I really loved that I heard from a studio owner years ago, she recognized students of the month, but she also recognized teachers of the month, because that really helped empower those teachers and give them something that they felt like they were a part of creating the experience that you want your families to have. So I think the communication path is so important, because if you start with the proper communication with your teachers, then they are more likely to pass on the experience that they are receiving as your employee to your customer.
I love that. And I know what the studio owners are thinking right now, Amelia. Great. I can barely get them in the door to teach their classes on time. How are we going to get everybody together for some development or training or just some feel good, sit down and have a meal together type of gathering? And I think that you have to be creative. I would definitely put it on the calendar and make it a regular occurring meeting. But I would also then invite you to do quick updates via a video message that goes out to a group that you have, or you can send a little updated, uplifting message to one of your teachers that maybe is struggling a bit, or they have some things going on at home. Just really being their cheerleader, being really invested in them so that they can feel really invested in your business.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And Jill, I know this is something near and dear to your heart. Are you using your current technology that you already have in place for your students to help your teachers? I think you raise a good point. It could be as simple as, do you have a group text that you just send out, like positive news bulletins, not just, hey, toilet's overflowing in this, studio today. Don't let kids use it. Think about some positive things too. And I think that leads us to our next point, which is, how to get their buy-in, even on days where, it's really difficult because you can barely get them, to come in and teach their class. So these are a couple of fun examples. So one example, and let's just put it out there, let's call a duck a duck. Costuming can be one of the biggest stressors of owning a dance studio, but it should also be one of the most profitable ways that you can add to your bottom line. And sometimes there's a big disconnect between the teacher and the studio owner about that very, very point. So what are you doing to get your teachers to buy in, whether it's to your recital theme or your costume choices to help create that experience for your customer? Do you let your teachers choose their costume? Do you give them guidelines? Do you choose the costumes? It really doesn't matter here. What does matter is that you can think of fresh ways to engage your teachers and empower their creativity while staying within your brand promise and your business needs. So think about this. If you're choosing costumes for their classes and they don't have a choice, why don't you do a costume reveal for them, just like they do for, like you do for your students? This could be part of that text chain, which takes almost no time, but those simple pieces of communication make them feel really, really good and bought into what it is that you're trying to do. Or another example, if you do let them choose their recital costumes, let's say you give them, certain catalogs to choose from, do you do anything to incentivize them to choose from a certain catalog that maybe better serves your business, right? Are they entered into a raffle for a gift card? Or do they get do they get to pick their costume? And then, you get the opportunity to pick some other teacher's costumes. It's really the sky's the limit here. And again, none of this really costs you much time at all, but it's a way to engage your teachers in the costume selection process. We also, want to always encourage you, take advantage of things that different vendors have to offer. So I'm going to insert a shameless plug here for our Energize Expo. This is an event where you can bring your staff to, especially if you're in the Chicagoland area. The expo part of Energize is free. So they can come and view our entire collection. And there are so many opportunities where you can really engage them in something that's really fun and help empower them in the overall selection process.
I'm glad you mentioned the Energize Expo, because not only is it a place where they can feel very much a part of the selection process, but you can meet people like you, Amelia, on our team and really have great conversations about the why behind some of the costumes and some of the choices. I remember speaking to a studio owner, oh gosh, it must be 2 summers ago now, but she had a very specific ballet in mind. And it was so amazing to sit there and put together pieces and figure out exactly what she was looking for. And she said to me, I never would have imagined this from what I had in my mind, and I showed her a different option, and it worked so incredibly well. So again, just having conversations and giving them the opportunity to explore different ways of looking at a costume, because they may be so set in one particular thing, but you as the studio owner know that, well, perhaps we can't find it in this particular catalog that we use, or maybe it's just not an option. Maybe it's a little too different from what we would normally do for our recitals. So it's good to have conversations and have lots of options.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to the communication piece. It's the same thing. Another example is, let's say you've updated your curriculum. Did you get your teachers to buy in to that curriculum change? Are they struggling to adapt? What can you do to help them through that, instead of just saying, okay, this is what we're doing now? Did you communicate why you changed the curriculum and why it's important to the kids and your business? And, again, those things could be as simple as a really engaging text chain. We're not saying that it has to be something that costs you time and money, but we do promise that just better communication with your staff will help you create a better environment for your teachers in the studio. So I think the main point of that create word is that engaging your staff can be just as important as engaging your clients. So our second point is about teacher satisfaction and student retention, but the key word here is sell. So your teachers sell for you.
They absolutely do. There's no doubt about it, because gosh, they are the ones that are hands-on with those students. And if the teachers are giving a great experience in the classroom, they are going to help you retain your students. Retention, retention, retention. We talk about it so often, Amelia, and something like empowering your teachers, giving them the curriculum that they so deserve and need if they need a little assistance in that area, making sure that they really feel the excitement of why they're in that classroom to begin with. Or, again, too, if there's a specific student that they're having trouble with, giving them that path again, making sure that they know they can come to you as a studio owner. Hey, I'm really struggling with this student. How would you handle this? What can we do? So again, really talking about how the classroom experience really translates into higher student retention for the studio. So, do the teachers and do your staff really know about all of these services that you offer? Are they able to then look at somebody and say, oh, you know what? I didn't even realize we had some adult classes going on Wednesday evenings. That's a great way to just upsell those parents to come in as well.
Yeah, it sure is. They're selling for you, and selling doesn't even mean just retention. Let's say you decide to start selling dancewear. Have you told your staff that you're selling dancewear? Are you doing anything to incentivize them to help you sell that dancewear? So for example, if you launch your Nimbly store, are you offering an incentive to your teachers that if they remind their class that they can get their shoes through your Nimbly store, are you, giving them a percentage of that? Like maybe you take a small percentage of that and you give them a $20 gift card as a thank you because their class of 12 kids got their shoes through you. I think that's just a really quick, easy way, but intentional. It's got to be intentional way of really helping your teachers sell for you. Another great example, let's say you have a teacher who is teaching a class of 7-year-olds. In this class, they are only taking hip hop. It's just a hip hop class. You think you can't get those students to cross over into any other genre. You've pretty considered them max potential for your studio. What if you incentivized your teacher to do maybe like a teacher swap day? And you had a teacher come in for, the back half of the class. And instead of teaching hip hop that day, they switch it up and they do jazz or lyrical or something like that the kids really, really wanted to try. What if you gave that teacher a postcard? Maybe a postcard you already have at your studio for enrollment that's got a QR code or a registration link on there that basically just talks about maybe your tier discounted prices if your kids enroll in more than one class. What is the incentive that you're offering for those teachers to capture more enrollments from the same student? And again, these are things that do require just a little bit of intentional time and thought, but I do promise you it doesn't take as much time as you think. It's just, you got to write those words down, right? Create, we're on to sell, put them on your Post-its, put them on your bulletin board. That way, you always remember to do that. Even think through selling. Does your studio have any logo wear? If so, do you give it to your teachers? Do you consider that maybe part of their comp plan? Some of the best word of mouth marketing is simply somebody walking around the grocery store wearing your logo.
My favorite things are my logo wear sweats and sweatshirts. I'm in them all the time. I'm so excited to wear them. A, they're comfy. B, it's a great advertisement for the studio. It's amazing. So I'm glad, and I love the idea of a teacher swap day. That's great.
Yeah, just, really fun things. Again, it just goes back to how many studio owners you and I talk to. These are just fun ideas we've heard over the years that do work in real world scenarios, which I think is really important. So our last word is deliver. So we talked about creating, we've talked about selling. Let's talk about delivering and just aligning your teacher goals with your studio growth. So they deliver your product. They deliver the service at the end of the day. So they're not just invested in your studio, hopefully, they're also vested. They've got a little ownership stake. So think of it this way. The choreography that they're creating for a recital or the combinations in class, who owns that choreography? Do you? Do they? Have you considered that in your teacher contract? So they're creating and then delivering that service and product in so many ways that is actually the final product to your customer. I think some of that is in the proof of training. And Jill, you and I were talking about this earlier with some real world examples.
Absolutely. Like when we think about, mom and dad sitting in the audience and we've got grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends and everybody's there and they're so excited to see their student on stage. And there's nothing more than to see them progress and see them move forward and see that, oh, you know what? Last year, my student, my son or daughter didn't even really dance much. They were on stage and they were having a blast, but boy, look at the growth that they have shown this year. They're actually moving on stage. They're following along really well. They're doing the steps that they need to be doing. They're so excited because they can see the progression and they can see that growth in the student. So that is a true testament to your teacher, right? They have progressed. They've done their job. They've gotten them to the excitement of the show and they're really, really doing well. So it's really about that, delivery of what you talked about, that product or service. It's the delivery of those lessons and that time in the studio that then translates to be on stage. So we want to make sure that we're hiring and checking in on those teachers and do we see progress? Do we see growth? I know me specifically as a teacher, I have one class this year. I'm really struggling. They're not progressing the way that I need them to be progressing, and I'm working on it. And now I've kind of figured out why. So, I've worked with them, and we're seeing the progress because I know that when they go to competition in another 6 weeks, I think it is, and then they end up on stage for recital, I want to be sure that everybody can see their progress. Everybody can see not only are they having fun, but they are definitely learning what they need to be learning on stage. So how do we get this done, Amelia? How can we make sure that everybody's really delivering on what they need to be working on?
Yeah. So a couple fun ideas I've heard over the years. What about offering some sort of leadership opportunity? Do you have a group of veteran teachers who've been with you for a while? Are there things that you could do to really add to their continuing education experience? We know some of those things cost money, but there are also so many resources available online too. Maybe that's a team building activity, where you and this group of veteran leader teachers are able to carve some time out to work on some of these sessions together. Maybe continued education in something that's almost unfamiliar to all of you, that you feel like you all need help with, or take advantage of some of the resources that are available to you in the industry. One of the immediate things that comes to my mind, and we love seeing this, when a studio applies for one of the Revolution Studio Essentials grants, because they want to get opportunities for their teacher to have some of those continuing education experiences. Those are really things that will help your teachers deliver a better product, and you will be showing that you're investing in them. You're investing in their skills as a teacher, you're investing in their future and their training and their development. So I've always found, as an employee of Revolution and as a teacher, anytime that I feel empowered, it's because somebody is investing in me. And so then I'm able to invest back into the business. And so I think there's some fun ways to do that as well. If they're also delivering a product, like, think about it this way, they're delivering a service to you if they're coming to competition weekend or shows. What are extra things that you can do, really, really small, that help add to their experience that will just make them really happy? Are you ordering flowers, for example, for your families to purchase? Why not order a few extra for your teachers and just give them one? Or even go by the grocery store, get a dozen roses and hand one to every single one of them, not on stage. It doesn't have to be in front of everybody, but these are just small tokens of, you know what? I'm invested in you. I appreciate you. Do you have in the teacher contract or the pay structure anything in place to encourage them to be a part of extra events? We know that that's not something every studio can offer, and that's totally okay. But think about some other ways that you can compensate them. One of my favorite ways of a studio owning our Revolution or using our Revolution Rev Cash that I've ever heard of is she would bank her Rev Cash that she earned from buying tights, and then she would use that Rev Cash to surprise and delight with teacher gifts. So she would get them a new pair of leggings or a new pair of shoes, or, some of our, Rev merch, crew necks, something to just make them feel appreciated. And I loved that. That really like touched my heart.
Yeah, and it goes a long way to be very giving. And like you mentioned, it does not have to be always monetary. It doesn't have to be big, grand gestures. But if you're showing your appreciation through ways that really make them feel special. I know, like I mentioned, I love getting my studio logo wear. It's something I look forward to. I just absolutely adore it. And I think it's really important too, like what you said about going back to the competitions, and they put in so much extra time. We're lesson planning. We are doing so many things before we even set foot into the actual studio. And then make sure you're compensating them for their time at the competitions, right? It's just as if they were showing up at the studio. So that we've seen that a little bit on some of the groups about compensating or not compensating for their time at recitals or above and beyond the studio time. So again, if you're not doing that, think about it, because it's really important that they feel really included, very appreciated. And I love the idea of banking some of that rev cash to use for merch.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Jill, you and I can both speak to this. Anywhere that we have ever taught over the decades we've been teaching, we are more likely to go back and teach for that studio owner again if that relationship is there, if that communication is there, and if we feel empowered in that studio. And a lot of that is just, I felt like a stakeholder. I cared, maybe not as much as a studio owner, but I cared a whole lot about the success of not just the kids in class, but the success of the studio in general. And I think it makes a big, big difference. So our final parting word here, when we're talking about getting your teachers to become stakeholders in your studio, right? So we've talked about creating. They create, they sell for you, they deliver for you. The last Post-it I think I would do, put on my board if I were you, is just to think through decisions. So think about what decisions your teachers have to make, maybe on a daily basis or a weekly basis or even a monthly basis. And it's not just the obvious decisions like costuming or, combination in class, but it's decisions they may have to make about hard conversations with a student or level placement or, things like that can just make a teacher's life a little bit more challenging. So if you just think about the decisions that they're having to make on a regular basis, and then think about how it impacts one of those three things, how it impacts the experience they create for the customer or the experience they're selling to your customer or delivering to your customer, I think it'll just give you a lot of clarity in how to approach this. Just bite off one thing at one time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't have to conquer this overnight, but just keeping in mind that your teachers are just an extension of your business and truly a stakeholder.
Amelia, I don't even think I want to add anything onto that, because that was such a great way to finish this podcast off. The teachers, your admins, anybody that's involved in your studio, they are the stakeholders, and they are so important. Amelia, you and I, you brought this, we were talking, this all, just so everybody knows too, a lot of these podcasts and the things that we talk about actually come out of conversations that we have as we're meeting in the course of our week. And this was a brilliant idea that you had. And we were talking about really investing into the stakeholders in the business. And you said, "Oh, Jill, that would be a great podcast." I said, yes, it would. So that's how we ended up to this point. And Amelia, before we wrap up, I just want to leave everybody with any last words that you have today, or if not, we can just end here, and I'll make sure that everything's in the show notes for you guys to click out and see and view all of those great resources that we've talked about.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add here is that, like Jill said, when we talk amongst ourselves, we're really talking about solutionizing for you all. Where are the gaps? And this is constantly a gap. We always hear of some frustration with how to get your teachers engaged. And so this comes from a place of love and support where we want to say, hey, here's some things that have worked for some other studios, maybe clear across the country. Let us help you fill that gap.
We are definitely here for you. So if you have any gaps that you need help with, we want to be sure you reach us. So click through in the show notes, give us a shout out on social media, and we will do our best to answer your questions and help you keep your studio growing and retaining those teachers and building those stakeholders in your business.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.